Taranmış veriler üzerinde revizyon işlemleri yapmak. Bir bakışta 3D tarama. 3D ortamında 3D tarama ve işlemenin tipik bir ortak sırasını şematik olarak göstermektedir. Etkinleştir. Nesneyi hazırlayın ve tarama yöntemini seçin. Tüm nesneyi tarayın. Bir tarafı tarayın. Döndür. Başka bir tarafı tarayın. İşleme yöntemini seçin. Otopilot. Çevreyi kırp. Hizala. Küresel kayıt. Gürültüyü ortadan kaldır. Füzyon. Kusurları sil. Ağı basitleştir. Doku uygula. Dışa aktar, paylaş. Bilgisayar gereksinimleri. Bir tarayıcının yanı sıra, stüdyoda modeller oluşturmak ve işlemek için bir PC'ye ihtiyacınız var. Bilgisayarınız Microsoft Windows 8, 10 veya 11 64 bit sürümünde çalışmalıdır. Bilgisayar ne kadar güçlüyse o kadar iyidir. Ana bellek ve grafik kartı en kritik bileşenlerdir. Aktivasyon. Bir hesap için kaydolun. Giriş yapın ve karşılama sayfasından kurulum merkezini indirin. 3 kurulum merkezini kurun. İstendiğinde e-postanızı ve şifrenizi girin. Dört tarayıcıyı bir elektrik prizine takın ve ardından USB kablosunu kullanarak PC'nize bağlayın. 5 Windows'un tarayıcıyı algılamasını bekleyin. Etkinleştiri tıklayın. 6 Stüdyo'nun makinenizde çalışmasını sağlamak için yazılım bölümünde kura tıklayın.
We'll show you how to install RTEK Studio. After purchasing your scanner, register at my.rtek3d.com to download the software. Follow the link and fill out the client's form. Please fill in your email address, name and country, and create a password. Complete the questionnaire to complete the registration process. Once you have registered, you'll be emailed a link to activate your account. On your profile page, you'll be prompted to download the RTEK Installation Center. Start downloading the software, choosing the appropriate directory for the download. Then run the installer file. Proceed with installation. Enter your login and password. Use the same email address and password which you used to register on the website. Connect the scanner to the computer and wait for Windows to initialize the scanner. Click on Activate. After the scanner is activated, you will have access to the software and RTEK Studio can be installed. You can choose the file directory and set up options yourself, but we strongly recommend using the default settings. Here, you can choose to install the additional drivers needed for sensors. Check here to install PrimeSense or ASUS drivers. Check here to install drivers for your Kinect sensor. If you do not need to install additional drivers, check here. Let's go through the basic installation process without additional drivers. Activate your RTEK Studio license. Run the application. Happy scanning.
Stüdyo kullanıcı arayüzü. Bir 3D görünüm. 2 gezinti küpü. 3B araç çubuğu. 4 çalışma alanı paneli. 5 günlük penceresi. 6 sol panel. 7 sol araç çubuğu. 8 şekilde işaretlenmemiş. Menü çubuğu ve durum çubuğu. Hazırlama. Nesne ve sahneyi hazırlayın, ortak öneriler. Çoğu nesne kolayca taranır, ancak en iyi sonuçlar için aşağıdaki önerilere uyun. Saydam, yansıtıcı veya siyah nesneleri taramadan önce toz kaplama veya özel parlama önleyici sprey uygulamanızı öneririz. Basit geometrik şekillere sahip tek renkli nesneleri taramak için aşağıdakileri yapın. Sahneye yardımcı nesneler ekleyin. Çevreleyen yüzeylerde boya işaretleri. İyi bir ortam ışığı sağladığınızdan emin olun. Tarama. Bir stüdyoyu başlatın, ardından tarayıcıyı nesneye doğrultun. Ön izleme modunu kişi başlatmak için tarayıcıya basın. Tarayıcınızda bu düğme yoksa, önce tara panelini açın. Geometri doku, varsayılan tarama modudur ve çoğu durum için uygundur. Eski PC'ler için geometri modu iyi bir alternatiftir. Gerçek zamanlı füzyon modu gerçek zamanlı bir model oluşturur ve post işlemeyi atlamanıza izin verir. Durduru tıklayın, ardından gerçek zamanlı füzyon onay kutusunu seçin ve ön izlemeyi tıklayın. Üç nesnenin görünür olduğundan emin olun, ardından kişi kaydı başlatmak için bir kez daha basın. Mümkünse, nesnenin tüm taraflarını tek seferde tarayın, tarayıcıyı yavaşça hareket ettirin. Bir uyarı sesi duyarsanız ve ekran kırmızı bir arka plana karşı bir hata görüntülerse, tarayıcıyı yakaladığınız alanda sorunsuz bir şekilde hedefleyin. Kayıp izleme hatasının olası nedenleri şunları içerir. Basit geometrik şekilleri tarıyorsunuz. Taradığınız nesnenin kısmı çok küçük. Tarayıcı hareketi çok hızlı. Stüdyoda taramayı görüntülemek için basın. Çevir ve tara. Nesneyi çevirin ve kalan taranmamış bölgeleri yakalayın. Ayrıca hizalamayı kolaylaştırmak için önceden taranmış en az bir bölgeyi kaydedin. Otomatik pilotu kullan. Yeni başlayanlar için 3D model elde etmenin en kolay yolu Autopilot kullanmaktır. Ayrıca ileri düzey kullanıcılar için harika bir zaman tasarrufu sağlar. Tüm adımları manuel olarak gerçekleştirmeyi tercih ederseniz, manuel olarak işleme bölümüne bakın. Autopilot, kullanıcıların son işlemenin tüm giriş ve çıkışlarını öğrenmeden eksiksiz bir 3D model elde etmelerine yardımcı olan özel bir moddur. İki ana bölümden oluşur, yarı otomatik ve otomatik.
And you'll be able to see my turntable, along with this little sumo character we're going to scan today. I have the RTEC Space Spider here, but everything I'm going to do in the software also applies to the RTEC EVA. Open my scan tab, and I'm going to press up on the back of the scanner to enable a preview. This will let me point my scanner in the correct direction. I'll press up again to start scanning. And you will see kind of a preview image of the raw data that it's capturing. This is called real-time fusion, and it is piecing together all the raw frames that it's capturing right now. Now we want the complete object, so I'm going to turn this over and do another scan. And then one more. And we don't really need this many scans for this object, but I want to show how nicely the auto alignment process works with multiple scans. All right. And that's it for the scanning. So I always tell people just to wait till the end before making judgment on these scans, because they usually say to me, well, that looks terrible, right? Yes, it looks like a bit of a mess, but wait till the end and I believe you will be impressed, because what we're looking at right here is just the raw unprocessed data. I'm going to click Autopilot here, and it's going to automatically remove the base from each of these models. And then it asks which scans you want to use for processing. I'm just going to click Select All, and it will select just the raw scan data. I'm going to click Next. And then what it does is it gives me this little wizard here, right? So it's basically just asking you questions about each aspect of the model that you scanned, as well as the results that you want. Basically, they're just drop-down boxes. So like good, bad, object size, all this. And there's these little helpful tips here. You can click these little question marks next to each of these questions, and it'll tell you exactly what it means by good texture, bad geometry, good geometry. So it makes it quite easy here. I'm going to leave all of this on auto except for the resolution. I just want this model at 0.3 millimeter resolution for this scan. I'm going to click Next. It asks me if I want to edit anything. I don't really want to erase anything here. This is all data that I want. It already automatically removed the base here, So I'm going to say skip this step. And now it's going to do its auto alignment. And this works quite well. It can really save you a lot of time if you have a whole bunch of scans. Now it's asking, does the alignment look correct? And you can just look over your model. Yes, this looks good to me. If it didn't align properly, you would have the option to go in and manually align things. And now what it's doing here is going through and running the behind-the-scenes algorithms that you don't really have to worry about. But all of these algorithms were set up by that little questionnaire that we ran through at the beginning. These first few steps here are basically fine-tuning the raw scan data so that you have really good results. And then this fusion here is taking all of the raw frames, and we had a few hundred raw frames captured. And it's going to fuse them all together into our final single surface model, into our final mesh that could then be exported either as an STL or an OBJ or a point cloud, .asc, any number of things depending on what you're trying to do with this data. And this usually just takes just a little bit of time. What's nice about this is for larger objects, if it is taking a little bit of time, you can just leave it, walk away, come back, and your model will be finished when you're done. And now it's reapplying the texture, which is the color in this case. The RTEX scanners are full color scanners. It applied the texture, now it's optimizing it, removing these seams. And it says the model's ready. So I'll click OK. Even though it was fully automated, this does look a little bit dark to me when compared to the source model. So I can actually come over here and say adjust texture. It does give you this option. And I can adjust this to where it looks a little closer to where it did in real life. Hit apply. And that's it. I can look at the model. This looks pretty good. I can double check my geometry here by turning off the texture. Again, this looks good. You can see you got the text on the bottom, got the parting line here from the molding process.
Model üretmek. Bir sol panelde otomatik pilota tıklayın veya simgesine basın F9. Ki bu kılavuzlu modda gerçekleştireceğiniz adımlara aşina olun. 3 çalışma alanı panelinde, kullanmayı düşündüğünüz tüm taramaları işaretlemek için bayrağı kullanın ve ardından ileri öğesine tıklayın.
Small metal bracket with my RTEX Space Spider, and I'm going to show you how to post-process these using Autopilot. There's almost nothing you need to know because Autopilot does most of the work for you. Here it's going to ask me to select what scans I want. I'm going to pick all of them. And then some basic questions, and if you're not sure how to answer these, the question mark icon gives you a guide on whether to judge your scan quality, say, as good or bad. I'm going to keep most of these settings default in this case. I'm going to change the hole filling method. I only want small holes filled, so I'm going to say nothing smaller, nothing bigger than 5 millimeters should be filled. I'm going to set the model resolution to a certain size triangle. And finally, I'm going to turn off texture because this metal bracket is just gray. I don't need its colors. It's going to ask me if I want to edit anything. And in this case, I'm going to use the eraser tools just to quickly get rid of the table that the part was sitting on. Base selection works really nice for this, by the way. On to the next step, it asks me to align the scans. Let's see if auto align works. In this case, yes. So I'm going to continue on. All right. And then it's going to just run us through a couple other steps. Now I've sped up the video here because there's nothing to watch other than some status bars filling up, but this was about 40 seconds total up to right here. So there is my mesh model of a 3D scan. Looks great, some really nice detail, and the training that I needed for this was next to nothing.
Dört ardından model oluşturma adımı için giriş parametrelerini belirleyin ve ileriye tıklayın. Birincil ayarlar aşağıdakileri içerebilir. A. Tarama kalitesi. Araç ucu görüntülerini inceleyerek nesne taramanızın doğru geometriye sahip olup olmadığını belirlemek için tıklayın. B. Tarama kalitesi. Simgesine tıklayın, resimlere bakın ve taramanızın yeterli dokuya sahip olup olmadığına karar verin. C. Taranması zor yüzeyler. Nesnenizde yakalanması zor yüzeyler varsa onay kutusunu seçin. Düğmeye tıklayarak görüntü örneklerine bakın. D. Görüntü örneklerine bakarak objekt boyutuna karar verin. E. Bu pencerede kalan seçenekler için varsayılan değerleri bırakın. Gelişmiş senaryolar için bu ayarları değiştirebilirsiniz. Beş gerekirse, işlemeyi ve sonradan işlemeyi engelleyebilecek yabancı nesneleri silin. Tarama bölümlerini silme bölümüne başvurarak silgiyi nasıl kullanacağınızı öğrenin. 6. İşiniz bittiğinde ileriyi tıklayın. Nesne birkaç taramada yakalandıysa, otomatik pilot bunları hizalar ve size sonucu gösterir. Bunu onaylayabilir veya taramaları manuel hizalayabilirsiniz. 7. İleriyi tıklayın. Sekiz Otopilot işlemeye ve ardından işlemeye başlayacaktır. Bittiğinde, modelin hazır olduğunu bildiren bir mesaj görünecektir. Tamamı tıklayın. Otomatik adımlar aşağıdaki gibi gruplandırılabilir. İşleme. Bir küresel kayıt. 2 aykırı değer kaldırma. 3 füzyon. 4 rötuş. Bir küçük nesne filtresi. 2 basitleştirme. 3 tekstüre. Pilot modunun HD yeniden yapılandırma ve fotoğraf kaydı gibi gelişmiş teknikleri uygulamadığını unutmayın.
Text Studio, I have this little propeller. It's just a simple mechanical object that I'll scan. And the first thing, of course, that we're going to do is capture scan data. So let's just go ahead and do that. I'll take one scan in this orientation, and then since I want a complete object, I will flip it over and get one more scan in that orientation. All right, so there's one. I will flip this over, and we'll start another scan and capture data from this orientation. So what this will do, this will allow us to create a complete watertight object that can be used for all sorts of different purposes. All right, so now we have our raw scan data. I'm going to click the autopilot button here. It'll run a little fine-tune alignment algorithm there. And then it gives me a little pop-up that shows that I'm entering the autopilot feature. I'll click OK. It asks me to select the scans that I want to process. I could only process one if I wanted to, but I want to process everything, so I'll just click Select All, click Next. And then it presents me with a list of questions about the object that I just scanned. And if you are unsure of what it's asking for any of these, you can click the little button next to it, and it gives you a visual example along with other details explaining what it's actually asking. Now for this object, I could leave this on automatic resolution and poly count, but I know that I want to use, say, a 0.3 millimeter resolution and 200,000 polygons. That should work fine for this object. I'm going to leave everything else as it is and click Next. And then it asks me if I want to edit anything out of the model. Now I did not use the automatic base removal for this object. So what I will do is say, yes, I want to edit, and I will come in here and let's edit this object. There we go. So erase that. And then I can just use this really simple base selection command. All right. There we go. So I've edited out what I don't want. I'll click Next, and it's going to attempt an automatic alignment. Now, a lot of times with mechanical objects that are very symmetrical, the auto alignment doesn't work so well. It's not really a problem though, because it's asking if they appear to be aligned correctly. If they're not, you can click Align Manually. And then what I'm going to do here is come in and line these up visually, side by side, and then click a couple points so that it's able to use as a starting point here in doing its alignment. I do have a couple markings on here for my own sanity, since this is a very uniform object here. I just need to get a couple points close here. I click the line. That looks good to me. Click Next. And now it's going to actually run through all of the behind-the-scenes algorithms that were set up when we answered all those questions about the object. Now, all of these algorithms are the same steps that you could run manually if you wanted to from the Tools tab, but Autopilot makes it so that you can just answer a couple questions and it will create your object for you. So here's the model. This is looking pretty good. It just did its mesh simplification and then applied color texture back over top of it. And here we are left with our completed object. We could look at the geometry again. This all looks really good.
Manuel olarak işleme. Kırpma çevresi. Bitirdikten sonra dosyaya tıklayın ve projeyi kaydeti seçin. Tarama panelini kapatın. Artık çevreyi kırpabilirsiniz. Amaç: yardımcı yüzeyleri silmek. Adımlar: düzenleyici, silgi, kesme düzlemi seçimi öğesini açın. Panel talimatlarını izleyin. Diğer istenmeyen öğeleri taramadan çıkarmak için silginin diğer türlerini serbestçe kullanın. Hizala. Amaç, birkaç taramayı hizalamak. Adımlar: 1 kullanarak 2 veya daha fazla taramayı işaretleyin, hizalayı tıklayın ve tuşu basılı tutarken en uygun sekmesinde bu taramaları seçin. 2 otomatik hizalamayı tıklayın. 3 doku eksikliği veya örtüşen alanların olmaması nedeniyle hizalama başarısız olursa, özellikleri taramalar arasında manuel olarak eşleştirin ve hizala düğmesini tıklayın.
You will now combine the scans together. Make sure that both scans are visible. Select Align on the left panel. In the Align box, you will see the color designation of each scan. Green is unfixed and will move, blue is fixed and won't move. As you look at the scans, you may notice that they appear together. You can move these scans apart to help you with the alignment process. Hold down Shift and the scroll wheel will move the unfixed scan. Select a new pair. You will determine where the scans will connect by selecting the matching sections. Select one part of scan 1 and then click on the corresponding part of scan 2. You will select 3 to 5 alignment locations. Select Align. The two scans will be stitched together. Examine your newly merged scan to make sure that they aligned correctly. If they did not, you can restart the alignment process. If you are satisfied, select Apply. At this point, you may have some gaping holes or missing components. Scan more sections if needed and go through the editing and aligning process for any new scans. In the next video, you will learn how to fuse the scans.
Küresel kayıt. Amaç: çerçeve konumunu tüm taramalarda aynı anda optimize etmek, böylece onları daha sonraki işlemlere hazırlamak. Adımlar: taramaları öğesini kullanarak göz işaretleyin, ardından araçlar, genel kayıt, uygula öğesini tıklayın. Gürültüyü ortadan kaldırın. Amaç: büyük aykırı değerleri ve biraz gürültüyü silmek. Adımlar: araçlar, aykırı değer kaldırma, uygula öğesini açın. Füzyon. Amaç: bir model oluşturmak. Adımlar: araçlar, düzgün birleştirme, su geçirmez, uygula öğesini seçin. Daha keskin yüzeyler elde etmek için keskin füzyon öğesini seçin. Her iki durumda da çözünürlük ayarlanabilir. Değer ne kadar küçükse, elde edilen yüzey o kadar hassas olur.
So we're back, and I have gone back through and rescanned several pieces of the skull that had obvious bad holes in it. Some of the stuff that's left over, I'm not going to bother to try and clean up because it's going to come out naturally in the rest of the process. But I've tried to get the inside of the orbital sockets, the back side of the skull that I know is missing, and a few different things. I've also run the global registration again because I've introduced some new data. But although I'm rerunning it again, I didn't have to do it throughout the entire scan. I only did it for the new material and enough of the old material that I would have something to work with. I didn't bother re-registering well over half of the original scans. But I'm going through the same process because I'm adding new data, so it's new raw data and it's got new garbage in it. I have to go through the alignment process, the cleaning up process, the global registration process, and now I'm removing the outliers, and you can see it's going much faster this time. Of course, as soon as I said, see, it's going faster, it slows down. Oh, it's almost done. And there is the scan. Globally registered, outliers removed, everything nice and lined up. There's the full data set, still a point cloud. We are now ready to start fusing our mesh together and seeing how that looks. So under the fusion panel, we have the outlier removal, fast fusion, smooth fusion, and sharp fusion. Now fast fusion would be good if I just wanted to check it to see what kind of errors and holes I have in it. Smooth fusion loses a lot of the details. It's also a faster process, and it comes out. It's really if you want to use that for things that you know are smooth, that because of the nature of the texture of the surface, the scanner may have introduced some artifacts that are too significant for it to programmatically weed out. So you could use smooth fusion for that. A sharp fusion is what we're looking for because we want to see all the details. And if I expand the sharp fusion options, I have a resolution option here which is set at 0.1. This number is in millimeters, and it's the average size of a polygon that I'm going to generate across this surface. Every 1/10 of a millimeter, it's going to put another polygon. This is a lot of surface area, so there's a lot of millimeters on that, so that's going to be a lot of polygons. 0.1 is about the point of diminished returns, gives you the highest mesh definition. I can go lower than that. I could go 0.05, and that will get me a tremendously huge mesh, but it won't really give me a much more detailed mesh than say 0.1 would. The other option that I have here is watertight. Watertight means it's going to go through and it's going to fill in all the holes that it finds in the mesh. So any hole that it finds in the mesh, it'll fill that over with smoothed out data. If you have any significant holes and you have watertight set, you'll see sort of a blistered look, and it really will look like a blister. Just a smooth little round cap over any voids that might be in there. But we're just going to go by radius. So it's going to fill in holes that are 5 millimeters or smaller. If it's bigger than 5 millimeters, it's going to leave it as a hole. And that's kind of what we want. I don't want to make this watertight yet because I know I'm going to be bringing in the deer antlers. And so I'm also not really too concerned about any holes that may remain in this mesh because I'll have a chance to hit them one more time when I bring in the antlers. This is going to be a long process, so this will be the last time I speak to you for a while after I hit this button right here. Alright, so the fusion is complete. Our first level of sharp fusion. It made one mesh that's 665 gigabytes in size, and if I go down and look at the project info, I see that it is 26,709,415 faces. But who's counting? And we can see that it left a lot of holes in the mesh, which we sort of anticipated. I knew that there would be missing data from around the sinus cavity because there's no way the scanner is getting down in there. When we do the finished model, we'll just let it fill that in with whatever it wants to make it watertight. But there's still some missing data around the front part of the nose that we could get. There's some holes around the teeth that we could get. So we're not quite done with this scan. I will go back and take some more scans of it and fill in those holes before I do the finished mesh. But I want to take this opportunity to kind of demonstrate what the rest of the process would be, assuming that I didn't have to go back and do some more work on this. Once I get my sharp fusion, as I said earlier, this has got a polygon every 1/10 of a millimeter. So it's a lot of polygons. The next thing we're going to do is down here in the post-processing tab, post-processing, wow, that's a word. I'm going to do a mesh simplification. Now what this does, this is going to go through the mesh and it's going to look for flat areas or smooth areas and take all the extraneous polygons out of the flat areas, but leave all the polygons in for the details. So we actually shouldn't see a whole lot of change visibly in our mesh, but the polygon count should go down dramatically. course, on a model this big, it is another involved process. So we'll just have to be patient and wait. Well, I will. You won't have to, because you will be right.
Hataları sil, opsiyonel. Amaç: aykırı değerleri ve kötü taranan bölgeleri silmek. Adımlar: düzenleyici, defature buruş tıklayın. Mesi basitleştirin. Amaç: gerçek 3B geometriyi önemli ölçüde bozmadan çokgen sayısını azaltarak dosya boyutunu küçültmek. Adımlar: araçlar, A basitleştirme, uygula öğesine tıklayın.
To the software here. I've got my little sumo character. This is a great example of a small organic object that you might be scanning. This is the RTEK Space Spider, although everything I'm about to show you also applies to all the other RTEK scanners once you've actually captured the data inside of RTEK Studio. All right, so let's capture some data here. Get started with my preview. Now I have disabled the automatic base removal because I want to show you step by step the process that you might use no matter what the object is. But if I were to enable automatic base removal, it would automatically remove this turntable after I'm done scanning. Now I do want my complete object, so after each scan I'll flip them over so I can get a different angle on each of these to capture all the obscured portions. And depending on the object you're scanning, you may have to do more or less scans than I'm actually doing right here. So I'm just going to do 3 quick scans, and we are done with that. All right, so now we have our raw scan data, and I will now show you step by step how to take this to a finished model. Now, what I won't do is go into really in-depth detail about each step. I just want to show you the process, and then you can refer to that manual processing guide for a lot more detailed information and specific numbers and best practices to go along with each step. All right, so after capturing the data, the next thing you will do is go to the editor and potentially the eraser if you need to remove portions of the scan that you don't actually want in your final mesh. So I'm going to come over to the editor. You'll notice when it leaves the scan screen for that first time, it will run a fine registration automatically. And again, if you had automatic base removal enabled, then you might not have to do this, but you also might have other things around the scan that you don't actually want in your final mesh. So you could come in here to the eraser, and there's a couple different types of tools here. I won't go over every single one of them, but I'm going to show you 2 of them here. So there is the cutoff plane selection, which is kind of a manual plane cutoff tool where I can select the base here, move it up and down, and choose to erase everything under that. There's also an actual base selection, which is a little more of a manual version of the automatic base removal process that happens during scanning. But you paint a little bit and then it chooses what it thinks it should remove for the base. All right, so you can do more editing if you want. You can erase complete portions. You can use the 2D selection to actually come in and erase parts of the scans, maybe if you don't want certain things in there. But I want everything in here except for that base. So I can move on to my next step now. I'm going to click the close button. And then we are going to go to the Align tab. Now, if you only have one scan, you can skip this. but I'm going to go to the Align tab because I want to use all of these, and they are nowhere near being lined up correctly. Now, depending on the object you have, you can use the Auto Alignment button or manually place points. For this video, I'm just going to click the Auto Alignment button, and then we'll move on. But there are separate videos that we have that go more into depth on manual alignment. All right, so I've done that. And everything looks really good. I can click Apply, and that's the alignment. Now, the next step we're going to do is go to the Tools tab. And the next step in line after alignment is global registration. So I'm going to take a second here and make a little note here, because I haven't mentioned it yet. These little eyes over here in the workspace show when a scan is active. So if you deselect everything, then nothing is active and your algorithms won't run on anything. If I want to run an algorithm or a tool or something on just one scan, I just make sure that one scan is selected. Now, I want to run global registration on all the scans together, so I'm going to make sure that all of them are selected. And I do like to expand all of my algorithms just to double check my settings before running them. But this looks good. This is the default. Notice if I change this, this little box fills in. So if you ever change any settings in these drop downs and you don't remember what the defaults were, you can click that little button and go back to the default. All right, so geometry and texture works great for the majority of objects. That's the default, so I just leave it at that unless you have trouble. So we'll click Apply, and it will run that global registration. What that is doing is it's comparing all of the frames captured in all of the scans to each other and making sure that everything is exactly where it needed to be. Okay, so the next step after global registration is the outlier removal. Now, this is mostly used for RTX Space Spider scans due to the fact that you're usually capturing very high detail items, and the noise floating around the object can sometimes mess with the fine details. So you want to make sure that's nice and clean. If I change to my points view here, notice all these points around here just kind of floating out there. Outlier removal cleans that up. So I've changed my settings here. The one thing you want to make sure of is that whatever resolution you run this at needs to be what you plan to run your Fusion at later on. So I know that I'm going to do my Fusion for this at 0.3 millimeters. And one more note on here is whenever you have a resolution option in these settings, now that I've run global registration, I can look over here at my max error column, and you don't look at this until after global registration, which we just ran. If you notice, I have a value of 0.1 in each of these. Acceptable ranges are noted in that manual processing guide, but for the Space Spider, as long as I'm under 0.3, I'm probably okay. Should be fine. Now, I don't have to run this specific item at 0.1 millimeters. It's probably overkill for that. So I'm going to choose 0.3, but the big thing is that this resolution number, you do not want it to be lower than this over here. So if I had a value of 0.3, then I wouldn't want to, over here in the max error column, I wouldn't want to come over here and put in a 0.1 millimeter value. So that's just a little note on resolution. That's also in that processing guide there. So these are the settings I'm going to use for this. Click Apply, and we will run that, and you'll notice it'll get a lot cleaner here as it removes points that are deviating from the normal. There we go. So it's a lot cleaner. All right. I'm going to switch back to my solid view here. After running outlier removal, I am going to run a fusion. There are several types of fusions. I won't get into the specific types and settings on all of these, but I'm going to expand Sharp Fusion. And I'm going to put in a resolution of 0.3 here. And I am going to choose watertight for the hole filling. If you only had, say, one scan and you didn't want it to just blob out wherever you didn't scan, then you wouldn't want to choose watertight. You'd want to choose fill hole by radius, and then it'll only fill the really small holes. But since I have scanned the whole object all the way around, I can choose watertight and it'll come out fine. So here's my resolution, again 0.3, watertight, click apply. And this is going to fuse all three of those scans and all the frames within them into one single mesh, or what could be exported as a mesh. And that'll take just a second. All right, so here it is. After creating your fusion, you're going to run your small objects filter. Most of the time I choose to leave the biggest object, so I'll just do that now. The other option is to filter by threshold. That's great if you had a partial scan of something and there were multiple disconnected pieces and you only wanted to get rid of the little tiny floating pieces around it and leave the larger disconnected pieces. But for a watertight object, leave the largest object usually works best. Okay, so here's my mesh, or my model. This is my fusion. This looks pretty good here. If I double click over here on the right hand side in my workspace, if I double click on the fusion, I can see that it's about 570,000 polygons. That might be fine for whatever program you're bringing this into. It might not be. So there are a couple options for reducing your mesh. Again, I won't explain these in extreme detail, but for this object, I'm going to use fast mesh simplification. And I'm going to choose a value of 200,000 polygons. That should work well for this, and click apply. If you wanted to reduce an object more accurately, you go to regular mesh simplification, and then there's an accuracy stop condition here, and you can put your acceptable error deviation right there, and that's in millimeters. But for this, fast mesh simplification is fine. If I come over here to my fusion again, it looks like it's 200,000 polygons, exactly like I wanted. All right, so after reducing the mesh, the next step is you could check your edges. If this was a partial scan, you could come over to your Fix Holes tab and smooth edges and fill in holes and all that. But I had a complete scan. I chose to make it watertight, so there aren't any holes in this at all. All right, so the next step I'm going to do is texture application. I'll come in here to my texture tab. I will choose all of the raw scans that I want to pull the color data from. Again, if there were certain scans you don't want to use, you can just choose a couple of them if you wanted to, but I'm going to choose all of my scans. And I have my fusion up here selected as well. And it's going to take the scan color, the color from the raw scans and apply it over top of my fusion. And these are the default settings here. I don't think I've changed anything here. They work really well. Unless you have reason to change any of these, you shouldn't really have to. You can change your resolution of the resulting JPEG or PNG that you export. But for the most part, these are the settings that I use the majority of the time. Click apply, and it will now go through and apply that color data to the object. All right, so here it is. It brings you, right after applying that texture, it brings you to a little screen, a little tab here that allows you to go through and adjust the values here. Now, it comes out with some values that should be pretty close, but you have the option of adjusting those if needed. I'm going to click apply because that looks fine to me. And then you are pretty much done. You can now go to File, Export Meshes, and then choose wherever you want to put this and export in any number of formats right here. So STL is pretty common, OBJ, WRL, those are some of the more common ones. But it really just depends on what you're trying to do with it.
Doku uygula. Amaç: dokulu bir model oluşturmak. Adımlar: bir dokuyu tıklayın. Ki ilgili alanlarda bir model ve kaynak taramalarını seçin. 3 Dışa aktar, uygula için dokuyu seçin.
RTEK scanners capture full color during the scanning process, and RTEK Studio in turn can reapply that data to the model, like you see here with the sumo character. Now, while RTEK Studio doesn't have an in-depth texture editing tool, it does have a basic tool that can function very well for simple editing processes, such as removing small imperfections or small bits of color and that sort of thing. So let's go in here to the texture healing brush, and I'm going to use the 3D selection tool. You could use the 2D selection if you wanted to. They function just like the tools, the 2D and 3D selection tools do within the editing tool and the defeature tool and the smoothing brush. So let's come in here, and let's say I didn't want this little white portion right here, this white headband. I'm going to hold Control and then scroll up and down to adjust my brush, and I'm going to be able to just remove that little bit. And notice, you may notice small imperfections, little cracks in the color data. That will go away once you hit apply. It has to re-optimize the texture mapping, and it'll get rid of that. So, I can get rid of that. Sometimes you can get rid of, larger portions. Like I should be able to remove his eyebrow here. Let's see how this comes out. If you ever select anything that's too large, you'll be able to tell. So see, that actually worked out really well. And then basically what it's doing is erasing it and then using the surrounding data to fill in what you wanted to erase. And if I click apply, it will apply that to the model. And notice that crack that was there earlier, that's no longer there. So it's nice, even texture. And now we're left with only the texture that we need.
Dışa aktar, ölç, paylaş. Modeli dışa aktarın. Dosya, ağı dışa aktar öğesini açın. Gerekli formatı seçin, klasör ve dosya adını belirtin, ardından tamamı tıklayın. Modeli ölçün. Misures öğesini açın, ardından aşağıdakilerden birini seçin. Mesafe hesaplaması için doğrusal. Mesafe hesaplaması için geodezik.
I've had a lot of questions in regards how to create or find volume of a part. So I have a small part here. This was done on the RTEK Micro 3D scanner, pretty small part. I'm just going to show you a quick way to find volume calculations. So if we go into our measurement section, we actually have a few different options here to take measurements. I'm going to go into my cross section. I'm going to find the part that I'm going to take the measurements on. Click next, and I'm just going to have it set to, let's go ahead and set it to this plane. As you'll see here, the part will become in red. This is the area that's going to start to calculate the volume calculation. So we're not calculating any of this area out here. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to actually move this plane down. Sorry, wrong way. I'm going to move it back up this way. And what I want to do is basically cover the part in all red. I can just say, go down here and say create section. And once I do that, I'm able to see the part and my cubic and squared volume calculations, which are in millimeters. And from here, if I wanted to, I could say export, and I can send these in.